Do you ever leave a family gathering feeling more drained than comforted? Maybe it's not even a big blow-up or dramatic argument, just that quiet, gnawing feeling like you weren't really seen, or worse, like you were being subtly chipped away at. You smile, you play your part, but when you get home and close the door behind you, you let out a breath you didn't even realize you were holding. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something: it's not just you. And you're not imagining things. There comes a time in life, especially after 60, when we start to see things with clearer eyes. The people we've tolerated, the habits we've accepted, the roles we've played without question, they start to feel heavier than they used to. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to set some of that weight down. We grow up believing that family is everything. And in many ways, that's true. Family can be a source of deep love, connection, and comfort. But what we don't often talk about is the darker side of that truth. The silent emotional toll that certain family dynamics can take on us over the years. The way certain behaviors, no matter how subtle, can quietly wear us down, leave us doubting ourselves, or simply make us feel less than. And here's the hard part: we often tolerate these behaviors far longer than we should, all in the name of keeping the peace. But peace doesn't come from pretending. It doesn't come from biting your tongue until it bleeds or shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. Real peace, the kind that lets you sleep well at night and smile for no reason in the afternoon, only comes when you start choosing yourself again. So in today's video, we're going to have an honest, heart-to-heart conversation about 5 toxic family behaviors you don't need to tolerate anymore, not at this stage in your life. You've earned your peace. You've earned your voice. And it's never too late to protect your emotional well-being. Before we dive in, if these kinds of thoughtful, healing, and empowering conversations resonate with you, if you care about your mental health, your relationships, and living the most peaceful, joyful life possible, please consider giving this video a like, sharing it with someone who might need to hear it, and hitting that subscribe button. I'm on a mission to build a supportive, kind-hearted community of people who want to grow, heal, and thrive, together. So let's begin with something that can be surprisingly common and incredibly damaging: dismissive behavior. Have you ever tried to share something personal, maybe a story from your past, a moment that meant something to you, only to be brushed off or ignored? Maybe they change the subject quickly, or laugh it off, or say something like, "Oh, you're too sensitive," or "that was so long ago, who cares?" That's not just rudeness. That's a form of emotional invalidation. And over time, it makes you question the importance of your own experiences. You see, when someone repeatedly dismisses your feelings or memories, they're sending a very subtle but powerful message, that your inner world doesn't matter. And after decades of that kind of treatment, you might start to believe it. But here's the truth: your stories matter. Your emotions are valid. You have a right to be heard and understood. And anyone who tries to silence or belittle that part of you, no matter how close they are, is not nurturing a healthy relationship. Now, this doesn't mean you have to start a shouting match at the dinner table. It might be as simple as saying, "That memory is important to me," or, "Please don't dismiss my feelings, I'm sharing this because it matters to me." It's not about changing them. It's about honoring yourself. Another behavior that often slips under the radar is guilt tripping. It can be so sneaky, can't it? Maybe you didn't call for a few days and suddenly you're getting passive-aggressive comments like, "Well, I guess you're too busy for your family now." Or perhaps you couldn't make it to a family function and someone says, "Don't worry, we're used to being last on your list." These remarks might be disguised as jokes or light-hearted ribbing, but they carry a sharp edge. They're designed to control you, to make you feel bad for setting boundaries or living your own life. And that's not love. That's manipulation. The saddest part is, when we've grown up with this kind of behavior, we often internalize it. We start feeling guilty even when we haven't done anything wrong. We sacrifice our own needs to avoid disappointing others. But ask yourself this: how often has that guilt brought you closer to them? How often has it led to real connection, real care? Or has it just kept you walking on eggshells? You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to have space. And you are allowed to prioritize your own health, mental, emotional, or physical, without having to explain or apologize. When someone loves you in a healthy way, they don't need to guilt you into showing up. They make you want to show up, because the relationship feels good and safe and mutual. I remember a woman I spoke with not long ago, let's call her Marie. She's in her 70s now, kind and soft-spoken, the kind of person who never wanted to rock the boat. For decades, she let her adult daughter guilt her into babysitting last minute, giving money she couldn't afford, even changing her plans just to avoid conflict. It wasn't until Marie had a small health scare that she realized how much of herself she had sacrificed. I always thought I was being a good mom, she told me, but I wasn't being good to myself. And that moment, that shift, was when she stopped saying yes to every demand, and started saying yes to herself. So if any part of you feels a quiet tug of recognition right now, if you're thinking about conversations you've had or feelings you've swallowed, I want you to take a breath and let this truth settle in. You are not selfish for wanting respect. You are not unkind for needing space. You are not a bad parent, sibling, or grandparent for drawing boundaries that protect your peace. You're human. You're worthy. And your needs matter. Let's keep going, because once you begin to recognize these patterns, you'll see just how free you can feel when you release them. Sometimes, once we start becoming more aware of the emotional undercurrents in our family relationships, things that once felt small or just part of the dynamic start to take on new weight. You begin to notice how certain interactions drain you, not just in the moment, but long after the phone call ends or the visit is over. And one of the behaviors that can cause a quiet, lasting ache is constant criticism disguised as concern. You know the kind I mean. It might sound like, I'm only saying this because I care, or, you know I love you, but, and then comes the remark that hits you right in the chest. Comments about your weight, your appearance, how you spend your money, how you raise your grandkids, what you're doing with your free time. Maybe it's framed as advice, or a joke. But you walk away from those conversations feeling just a little smaller than before. What's tricky is that many people genuinely believe they're being helpful. They think they're offering support or wisdom. But real support uplifts you. It strengthens your sense of self, even if it includes a gentle challenge. Constant nitpicking and judgment, on the other hand, only serve to erode your confidence and make you second-guess your own choices. If you find yourself bracing every time a certain family member speaks, if you feel that tightening in your chest, that shrinking sensation, you might be dealing with this kind of toxic dynamic. And here's what I want to gently offer you today: you are allowed to stop tolerating that. You are not obligated to sit through criticism just because it comes from someone you love. It's okay to say something like, I appreciate your concern, but I'm happy with the choices I've made, or even more directly, that comment doesn't feel supportive to me. Protecting your self-worth is not rudeness. It's a form of self-respect. And after all the years you've spent caring for others, you absolutely deserve to receive that same care in return. Now, there's another behavior that's more subtle, but incredibly harmful over time. It's the role assignment. In many families, people get cast into invisible roles that follow them for decades, often without them even realizing it. Maybe you were always the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over every argument, kept the holidays running, and made sure everyone felt okay, even if you didn't. Or perhaps you were the strong one, never allowed to show weakness or need help yourself. Some of us get stuck as the difficult one, where even our smallest requests are treated like unreasonable demands. These roles can be like invisible cages. And the older we get, the heavier those cages feel. I once spoke to a man named Thomas, who was always seen as the family fixer. If something broke, emotionally or literally, he was expected to step in. When his brother went through a divorce, when his mother needed constant errands run, when his nephew needed money, the whole family turned to Thomas. And for years, he showed up, never saying no. But deep down, he felt resentful, used, and a little bit invisible. Because nobody ever asked how he was doing. What he eventually realized was that saying yes all the time hadn't earned him respect, it had earned him expectation. And when he started stepping back, taking time for his hobbies, setting limits, something amazing happened. A few people resisted. Some were surprised. But others, the ones who truly cared, adjusted. They started seeing Thomas as a full person, not just a resource. If you've been carrying a role that no longer fits who you are, or never fit in the first place, you're allowed to let it go. You don't have to keep being the one who makes everything okay for everyone else, especially when no one's asking if you're okay. You can simply say, "That's not something I can take on right now," or "I need to focus on my own well-being." It might feel uncomfortable at first. But that discomfort is the doorway to your freedom. It's not selfish to want to live a life where you're not constantly performing or overfunctioning for other people. It's healthy. And it's healing. Let me be clear, family can still be family, even if the dynamics shift. You don't have to cut people off completely to protect your peace, though in some extreme cases, that may be necessary. Often, it's more about adjusting the relationship, stepping back from certain behaviors, and finding your voice again. Because when you begin to set boundaries, you're not punishing anyone, you're honoring yourself. And you're teaching others how to treat you going forward. There's a deep truth here that I want you to hold close: you are not too old to grow. You are not too far gone to change. And it is never, ever too late to start making choices that serve your joy, your calm, and your emotional well-being. So if you've been carrying the weight of roles you never asked for, absorbing comments that chip away at your confidence, or bending over backwards just to avoid being criticized, let this be your permission to stop. Let this be the moment you choose a different path. Take a breath. Let your shoulders relax. You don't have to carry what no longer belongs to you. Let's continue, because there's still one more behavior that quietly steals our peace, and recognizing it might just change the way you see everything. One of the most painful dynamics we can face in our family lives is when someone constantly plays the victim. It's subtle at first. It might even look like humility or vulnerability. But over time, you begin to notice a pattern. Somehow, no matter the situation, no matter who's actually responsible, this person always finds a way to become the one who's been wronged. It's never their fault. And when you try to express how you feel, suddenly you're the bad guy. It's exhausting. It's confusing. And it makes honest communication almost impossible. This behavior shows up in different ways. Maybe you try to gently bring up a boundary, and they burst into tears or accuse you of being cruel or ungrateful. Maybe you mention something that hurt you, and they immediately turn it into a story about how they've always been the one suffering, how you don't understand all they've done for you. And somehow, again and again, your needs get pushed to the side. When someone in your life always positions themselves as the victim, it creates a dynamic where you become the caretaker, not just of their emotions, but of their story. You're expected to walk on eggshells, to make sure they feel okay, even at the cost of your own truth. And after a while, it starts to feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough. You give more and more, hoping to finally earn their approval or avoid the drama, but peace never comes. What's heartbreaking is that many people raised in these environments learn, over time, to question themselves constantly. Was I too harsh? Maybe I'm the one who's wrong. Am I just being selfish? If you've had those thoughts, if you've been stuck in that loop, I want to tell you something very gently, but very clearly: someone else's refusal to take responsibility for their actions is not your burden to carry. You're not selfish for telling your truth. You're not unkind for setting limits. And you are not responsible for managing the emotional reactions of people who refuse to look honestly at their own behavior. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for them and for yourself, is to stop participating in the cycle. That might mean choosing not to argue. It might mean stepping back from certain conversations. It might mean taking time and space, even if that feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable. But it's in that space that you begin to reclaim your peace. And peace, real peace, is priceless. Now, I want to pause for a moment here and say this, from my heart to yours, I know how complicated family can be. Especially when you've spent years, maybe decades, trying to be the glue that holds everything together. You might love these people deeply. You may have shared memories, history, traditions. You might have a voice in your head right now saying, but they're still my family. And yes, they are. But love does not mean tolerating mistreatment. Family does not mean sacrificing your own well-being indefinitely. You are allowed to love someone and still say, this isn't healthy for me anymore. You can care about them and still take a step back. You can offer compassion and still draw a firm line. Those things are not opposites. In fact, they often go hand in hand. You deserve to feel safe in your closest relationships. You deserve to feel seen and heard and respected, not just when you're doing what others want, but especially when you're standing in your truth. And you are absolutely allowed to choose peace over patterns that hurt you. Maybe that means letting go of guilt. Maybe that means redefining your role. Maybe it means finally having a conversation you've been avoiding for years, or simply choosing to protect your energy by not having it at all. Whatever that next step looks like for you, know this, you are not alone. So many people in your stage of life are waking up to the quiet toll that toxic dynamics have taken on their spirits. And they're choosing, every day, to live differently. It doesn't require a big explosion or dramatic exit. It starts small. With a pause. A breath. A decision not to pick up the phone right away. A moment of truth spoken gently but firmly. A commitment to yourself that says, I matter too. And once you start doing that, something beautiful begins to happen. You begin to heal. You start to feel lighter. You find yourself smiling at nothing, just because there's more space in your heart. You sleep better. You move through your days with a little more confidence, a little more clarity. You begin to live, not just survive. That's what I want for you. Not just more birthdays, more years. But more life. More laughter that feels real. More mornings where you wake up excited, not anxious. More evenings spent doing what feeds your soul instead of pleasing everyone else. More time spent as your full, unapologetic self. Because you've given enough. You've bent enough. You've tolerated enough. And now, it's your time. Time to choose peace. Time to choose truth. Time to choose you. If this conversation resonated with you, if you saw even a glimpse of your story in these words, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and you never know who might feel less alone because of something you shared. And if you haven't yet, please give this video a like, hit that subscribe button, and share it with someone you care about. We're building something here, a space where healing and hope are always welcome. Here's to living your best, most peaceful life. Not someday. Not when everything is perfect. But now. Exactly as you are. Because you're not too late. You're right on time.